So far we've only been doing main menu work, getting our main menu set up here. Let's actually start to make the game itself. So let's come into our project settings here, and because we're going to be working on the game now instead of the main menu scene, let's change our main scene here to game. And let's work on the player. So let's close these scenes that we don't need. You can you can click on your scroll wheel, click to close scenes quickly. So let's close all these scenes right here that we're not going to be using. And let's create the player scene. So our player is going to be a character body 2D. Character body 2D is a collision object 2D. There's see if we type physics body 2D. So there's several different types of physics body 2Ds. Let's say body actually. We have static body 2Ds. These are collision objects that don't move. So you use them for walls and stuff like that in your game. You have rigid body 2Ds. These are 2D physics bodies that are, like it says here, they're moved by the physics engine. And then you have character body 2Ds, and these are moved by script. So they're moved by either inputs, or they're moved within the script itself. So the difference between a static body 2D is it doesn't move. You can't apply external forces to it. A character body 2D is controlled by scripts, and a rigid body 2D is controlled by the physics engine itself. So we want a character body 2D for this because it's the player, and we want to be able to control it within our script. Let's name that player. Excuse me. So let me go get set up here. Okay. So we have our player. Go ahead and zoom in on the origin. You can hit F to center that. So under our player here, let's add a sprite 2D. And let's go to the player.png and let's add that texture on there. This is going to have 3 horizontal frames on it. So this first frame is just normal idle. This second frame is for when we're moving down, and this third frame is for when we're moving up. So we will set the frame according to if we're moving down or up or idle. So right now we just want the frame to be 0 because that's the idle frame. Let's add a collision shape 2D on here, because every physics body needs a collision shape associated with it. So if I delete this, it's going to actually give you a warning here and say that this this node has no shape, so that it can't interact or collide with other objects. So we want it to be able to interact with other objects, so we need a collision shape on there. And let's come to shape here, and we will do a new capsule shape. So let's rotate that 90 degrees. Zoom in here. Let's turn on grid snapping here, and we'll do a 1x1 grid snap here. And we'll just make that match up with our character body, just like that. Okay. I like the collision shape to be above the sprite, just like that. Let's go ahead and create a GPU particles 2D here for the engine. So hitting W changes from select mode is Q, and W is move mode. So hitting Hitting Q, you'll be able to select different things in the project. Hitting W will actually allow you to move those things without selecting other things inadvertently. So let's go ahead and move that GPU particles right here to this square here. And on this GPU particles, let's have an amount of 25. Let's have a lifetime of 0.25 seconds. Let's have a fixed FPS of 0, interpolate off. And let's create that particle process material. Let's go in here. Let's have a lifetime randomness of 0.5. So what this does is it'll make the particles last between half of this value, so 0.125 seconds to 0.25 seconds. So they'll randomly they'll have a random lifetime between 50% of the lifetime value or 100%, up to 100%. Let's have a velocity direction of -1. So they'll shoot out to the left. Have a spread of 0. Have an initial velocity of 25 and a max velocity, or minimum of 25 and a max of 50. Let's turn gravity off. And let's come down here to color. Let's have a color ramp. So I want the particles to start off being white, and then over their lifetime, I want them to turn to black. So let's create a new color ramp here. So a gradient texture 1D, and let's click into that, and let's click into this gradient. So let's click on this bar here so we can change the color that it starts off as. I want them to start off as white. And then let's click on this last bar here, and then we can click in this square here to change it to black. And well, we won't have it be pure black. We'll have it be like a little dark gray, like that. So that's just going to change. That's going to have them have a gradient, essentially, over their lifetime. And let's go ahead and duplicate that, and then hit W and move this one down. So we have two engines here. So I'm going to name this engine particles 2D, and name this engine particles 2D 2. Let's go ahead and save the player. Let's go to source, create a new folder here, player, save that. Now we have a character body here, and we want it to move. So I'm going to create a component here called, and this will just be a node. So I'm going to name this velocity component. So in this project, we're only going to have one character body 2D that's going to be moving around. But in other projects, if you have multiple character body 2Ds and they all need to be moving around and doing stuff within code, then you can just slap this velocity component on them, and that'll be enough to get them moving. So we're gonna make this a component. This would be called like ECS, an entity component system, where you break out all of the functionality of a certain entity. You break it out into different components. So let's say for this we have a velocity component. We want it to move. Let's also say that we wanted something to you know, shoot bullets, or anything that you would want it to do, you can make it be a separate component. I feel like I'm explaining that terribly, but let's just go ahead and put that into practice here. Let's create a new folder. This is going to be called components. Save that in there. Add a script on here and create this velocity component. Okay. So we're going to have an export variable here for our max speed. We'll just initialize that to 40, and we'll have an export variable here for acceleration. And we'll set that to 5 initially. We're going to have a var velocity equal to vector2.0 initially. We'll just set it to 0. And let's get into this. So we're going to have a function accelerate in direction. We will give it a direction. So of our final velocity as a vector2. Is equal to our direction times our max speed. So velocity is equal to velocity.lerp. We're going to lerp to our final velocity over 1 minus the exponent of negative acceleration times get process delta time. So what this will do is it will accelerate from our current velocity to whatever we want our final velocity to be over, and this is called an interpolation factor. It's just a smooth, it's a smoothing factor basically. And we need to times that by by delta time so that this is frame rate independent. And I know that sounds a little complicated, but just simply speaking, this will smoothly go from our current velocity to the final velocity that we want. Instead of instantly snapping to the velocity, it'll smoothly go to that velocity over time. Let's have a function here called decelerate. And that is simply going to be accelerating in a direction to a velocity of 0. And then we will have a move function here. So this is going to take in a character body. So let's take our character body velocity and set it to our velocity components velocity. And then we will do character body.move and slide. And then if there's any residual velocity left over, like let's say we hit a wall or something, or some other collision object, we will save that leftover velocity there. So that's all we need to do to move a character body. Yeah, so now whenever we want to move a character body, we don't have to rewrite this this kind of code over and over and over. We can just reference this. So let's go back to our player and let's add that velocity component on there. And I like all the components to be at the top here. And let's add a script to the player and go into the player script. So let's access this velocity component as a unique name, and let's access the sprite2D as a unique name as well. Drag and drop these in as onReady vars. This is a node, and this is a sprite2D. Let's go into the process function. This is a built-in Godot function that runs every frame. And we'll do var direction is equal to get direction. So let's write that function down here. So let's get a direction here. So for our X movement, it's going to be a float. It's going to be equal to input.getActionStrength for move right minus input get action strength for move left. So if we're holding move right and move left at the same time, this will be 0 essentially. It won't allow us to move right and left at the same time, so that'll 0 out. And let's do var. Also, if we're using get action strength here, if we're using a joystick like on a controller, then it won't just be a value either 0 or 1. It will actually be a value between 0 and 1 based on how far the joystick is moved over. So that'll allow us to do controller input in the future here. Let's do the same thing for Y movement. We can just copy this and change this from move right to move down and move up, minus move up. And so we're going to return a vector2. And up here, just to stay with convention here, we're going to be returning a vector2 here. So return a vector2 of the X movement and the Y movement. And we're going to normalize that. All right, so we have the direction that we want to move based on the inputs, based on the player inputs. And so let's take our velocity component and let's accelerate in direction. Oops. To that direction, and then we will simply call move on ourselves. That's how we're using our velocity component. We're getting the direction, we're accelerating then in that direction, and then we're moving. Now let's set up the ship animation so that it matches the movement that we want. And we will simply give it the direction.y here. So let's set that up. Function animate ship. And this will take in a Y movement. It's a float. So if Y movement is less than 0, meaning we're moving up, because negative in the Y direction is up on the screen. You come here. Negative Y is moving up, and positive Y is moving down. So if it's less than 0, that means we're moving up. So we want to set our sprite2d.frame equal to the second frame, which is our moving up frame. And then we want to move these engine particle 2Ds. So we need to actually access both of these as unique name. Drag these in, statically type them as engine particle or GP particles 2D, just to stay consistent. So we want to move these to match this frame 2. So I've actually already gotten these coordinates. We want to move them like this and this. So we're going to be affecting their position here. You can see -5 and 2, and the position here is -5 and 1. So I've already calculated all those positions that we need here, but that's where they're coming from. So if we take our engine particle 2D.position, is equal to vector 2 of negative 5.0 and 1.0. And then our engine particle 2D 2 dot position is equal to vector 2 of negative 5.0 and 2.0. So that's if we're moving down. We'll say else if y movement is greater than 0, then we're moving up. Go ahead and copy all this. We want the frame to be 1, and we want these positions to be negative 1 and 5, 0. So let's go to our sprite 2D here, and if we're on frame 1, this is where I'm getting these positions. I move these up. And so it's negative 5 and 0 and negative 5 and negative 1. But let's go ahead and reset the frame here to 0 and put these to their default positions here. So if we come in here, this is, yep, got that set up. And then else, that means we didn't have any Y movement on this frame. So the frame will be 0. And then they'll be at their default positions of negative 6, 0, and negative 6, 1. So that'll set our frame, and that'll set the position of the engine particles. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's go to our game and add our player into the game. Go to the 2D scene here. We'll just put him in the middle here somewhere, like that. You know what? We can precisely move him. Why not? Well, I set him directly in the middle somehow automatically. We'll set him at 64, 180. All right, let's hit play and see if we can move our ship around. And here we go. We're moving our ship. And we're moving really slowly. Let's go to our player here, click on velocity component, and here's where we can change our max speed. Those are our export variables here. Let's do 150 and an acceleration of 10. Let's try that. See if that feels smoother. And there we go. We can move around. Got some nice engine particles going. And our sprite is changing based on our Y movement. That looks great.